Gilts is one of few asset classes which is not seeing the huge movements today. Is it those 2 points I raised? You'd be buying safe haven gilts normally, but because they're gilts, UK paper, you're steering clear.
Well, I think there's also the political uncertainty that you've covered earlier. Is who is going to be in charge of the government in the UK? Is that going to remain Cameron for some time? Is there going to be a referendum in Scotland? And all of this makes people question, are gilts quite the safe haven they would be? I do agree that the economy is going to go slower in the UK. This is uncertainty, which is bad for markets usually, and gilts should perform quite well in that environment.
Any attempt to normalise rates globally and to withdraw cheap money and quantitative easing, whether it be from Japan to the EU, Eurozone to the United States, that's off the table, certainly for the short term, isn't it?
Well, I think that we know that Japan is going to continue QE for a very long time. We know that the ECB will continue QE for many years. The Fed, maybe they will start to hike later in the year, but I agree, July definitely isn't going to happen now. And so I think from that perspective, there's a lot of money being printed, a couple trillion a year, and that will continue for the foreseeable future.
David, the markets now are obviously very volatile, and we're finding it very hard to work out whether the price discovery is reflective of what we may see over the medium term. What do you do on a day like this when you do what you do?
Well, I think one of the things you have to do is you have to look at your long-term fundamentals, and you kind of look out, are there going to be opportunities presented today that you may not normally get? And I think in some of the markets, such as credit, you will see opportunities presented today that you may not see again, and you look to invest in those. As well as I think you have to look at the macro political view. Does this actually change Europe? Does this mean the euro or the EU, how do they react? I think it's the biggest question for me, because you've already seen that Italian and Spanish bonds are selling off quite aggressively, whereas Germany is doing very well. You're seeing that split within Europe, and I think that it's really how do you take advantage of that.
Has this outcome, you talked about some of the selling off that's taking place, has this created, do you think, further reasons to be nervous about the existing structure of Europe and the Eurozone, and ultimately whether reform programs as they're currently being enacted will be suspended or postponed?
Well, I think what this will do for Europe is that we will have to see Europe come probably closer together, or you'll see more problems. And I think this is, you've seen across Europe politically that people vote for not the incumbent over and over and over again, and we've seen that again with Brexit today. And so I think from that perspective you will see the EU try to further integrate, but it will be difficult to see how that can happen in a quick fashion.